Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Well, I was in the garage, but it's too cold, fellas, so I'm back in the house. Be easier to talk without my teeth rattling, because they're calling for a pretty severe weather here in a few hours. And I'm not complaining, because I see some people really getting hammered in other states. But this has been on my mind. We're going to talk about the E7 heads and GT40Ps and the GT40s. And it's because I have a lot of questions people are asking me, and it's hard to answer their questions because one of the reasons is I'm always on the extreme side with things. And another thing is I always think of it as, excuse me guys, a racing thing. I have to realize when people ask me questions that it's not always about quarter mile. And off the top of my head, unfortunately, that's where my brain's at all the time, guys. So I'm going to try to bring this back down to earth, back to basics, and try to answer a few questions. And hopefully I won't leave you more confused than when you heard my segment. So one of the questions I had several times is it worth putting bigger valves in? Well, that's all to be considered is because of what you're doing. And here's how you have to look at that situation. When I do bigger valves in the heads, I don't go by flow numbers. You guys know that. If somebody wants to go by that, that's fine. I don't. I go by times that I get out of the car. I go by improvement on the time slip. And that way I know if it works. So we're going to talk about the E7 heads first. The E7's on the car that most of you guys know of. It's been 9s and it runs 10s on motor. When we upgraded from the E7 valves, I did have them back cut and I did what I could do with them in the garage out here. There wasn't nothing fancy. The stock valves, I just did what I could with them. And then we put Manley valves, upgraded, in the E7s. And we went to the GT40 size, 185 and 154 from a 178 and a 145. That's what it says here. I always thought they were 147. You look this stuff up, guys, you get different numbers off of them, but that's basically it. So we picked up roughly 10 horsepower. And I'm going to do this the old school way. The reason I'm saying 10 horsepower is because it picked up 1/10 of a second. So back in my day, we figured things like this. If you picked up 1/10, it was 10 horsepower on a rule of thumb. So we're going to say we pick up 10 horsepower for whatever the price of the valves cost, the machine work. So is it worth it? Well, if you're just doing a car to have a little fun with, my opinion, it's not worth it. But you guys know me. I'm out to do the extreme. But I want to look at this from down to earth and from an equal playing field of somebody just maybe upgrading or just wanting a little bit more performance. So we got to do it this way. If it's a tenth of a second, that's a tenth of a second you're going to have throughout the remainder of however long you keep that car. So, and I found it to be a tenth of a second. I have. Some people might not. That depends on how your bowls are done, your seats, everything. There's a lot of variables, but I can't go into all that because it will just get me sidetracked. So here we go. If you're running 11.0, how many times have you done something like that? Run 11.0, a 12.0, even a 13.0. And you're going to start punching the dice of the car. Oh, why couldn't that have been a 1290? Why couldn't that have been an 1190? Why couldn't that have been a 1090? Well, that valve would make that difference. At least it did for us. I'm not going to say it would make that difference with whatever you're doing because I don't know if you have the bowls done correctly. I don't know if they're above average. I don't know what that head consists of. So when you guys ask me questions, it's hard for me to answer all that. But one thing I can tell you is this. That bowl work is more important than upgrading them valves. And I might have some guys get on there and say, no, it's not. Well, if that bowl work's not done correctly and your seats aren't done correctly, then you might as well just not bother because that's the important spot. They're the important things. If you could even take the stock size valve in a E7 head and cut that valve back and put the right taper on that valve could outrun the bigger valve. Some guys might not believe that, but that's the truth. The shape has a lot to do with it, and the seats have a lot to do with it. What angles you put on it, and there's a lot of discrepancy sometimes with that because everybody wants to do some kind of fancy angles. And when you have a head that doesn't call to slow the airspeed down, then why do you want to slow it down? So that's one thing I consider when I do what I do. But one thing I didn't want this video to be is where I start getting extreme. I wanted to do this from somebody just starting out and that are unable to know these things. They look it up, and the information you get is always opinionated, just like mine's opinionated. You could talk to somebody else, and they could say putting the biggest valve in there is going to help. Then somebody else will say that it won't help. So what do you do? Well, I'm going to tell you guys this. Stock doesn't cost you anything. And if you go too big and the rest of the work isn't done right, then you're defeating your purpose. The 10th you gain is the 10th that you'll lose if you go with a valve that's too big. And it could be even more. You know, Ford guys, if I had to pick a group of guys that make more mistakes than anybody, I think it'd be a Ford guy. And it'd be the old school Ford guys because they're the ones that would take the Chevrolet valve and copy the Chevrolet and cram them valves into a head and not do the rest of the work. I've seen that time and time and time again. That is the biggest mistake you can make. When you guys see me going to the extreme side and I am doing that, believe me, that bulwark is going to accommodate that head, that valve. If you're not going to do these things to accommodate that valve, then it's not going to be worth you doing it. So I'm doing this so guys don't think they need to spend $200 or $300 on upgrading the valves. Because if you think about this, our car completely stock with no cam, no head work. The motor came out of one car and went into our car. My son got that car to run 11s. So think about your suspension more. Think about all the other things you need to think about. The gear you want to run before you think about wasting money on putting valves in. That's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right because you might look at it different. And if you do look at it different, that's okay because it's your car. Fellas, you got a right to do what you want to do and how you want to do it. I just give you my opinion, and the only reason I give you my opinion is because we've been there and we've experimented with a lot of stuff. The car don't wander itself into a 10-second zone by itself. So I'm hoping this is helpful. I do always hope when I talk to somebody on my channel that if I tell them something, they're going to see a big difference or it's going to help them. The last thing I want to do is tell them, yeah, put a bigger valve in that and have it hinder it because I can't stop and think all the time that I'm not doing that head. I'm not the one that's seeing if it's cut back right or what's being done. If the rest of the work is accommodating that. But on a valve factor alone, you got to take into consideration if it's worth the $200 or $300 to pick up that 10th of a second. So here's how you want to look at it. From a bone stock point of view, from an E7 point of view, that has the smallest valve. If I only picked up a 10th of a second with that valve, and that's going with the GT40 valve, like I told you, how much are you going to pick up with the other heads, the GT40Ps and the GT40s? So, like I said, it depends on what you're doing. And another thing that people don't realize, it depends how hard you're turning that engine too. That's another thing. So I try to put all the reasons to do something or not to do it. But only you really know that, guys. You only know your reason for doing something in the first place. You know what you're trying to do with the vehicle. I don't. But if I did, I'd surely tell you everything to do. I wouldn't even hold back. I try to tell people to make it where they can save money and where their car will run the best for them. And the reason I do that is because I've been there. I've always had to figure things out for myself. Even my friends were really fast back in the day. They wouldn't tell you everything. And it was kind of hurtful because you're best friends with a few of these guys and they would hold back. They wouldn't tell you a lot of stuff. A couple guys I know, they were very smart. They had the advantage on all the guys back in the day. They were above average and they were the ones to beat. They still wouldn't tell you all their secrets. I learned some along the way by hanging out, but as far as flat out telling you, they wouldn't do it. So I didn't want to be like that. I wanted it to be where if somebody asked me something, I'm not going to tell somebody halfway how to make an improvement on their car and then not tell them the other half. Do we have a few things we do that we keep to ourselves? Yeah, we do. But it's also stuff that if I told people, you'd get an argument from them. They would say that's wrong. So we keep it to ourselves on certain things. But if I'm going to tell somebody something about porting ahead, I'm not going to leave something out where they don't make the power that they can make, because that defeats the whole channel. That, to me, that is just something that would make no sense to me. It'd be like you go into school and the teacher only tells you half the information and then you have to figure the answer out yourself and not even know the full question. So I never want to leave you guys hanging. And there's even people ask me the combination of the car, and I've told them. So there's not many guys that do that. And like I said, I always want to be upfront, and I always want to be where if you guys ask me something, I tell you right. And like I said, something I think is right is still my opinion. It's only because I've seen it with what we're doing. But I can't make your car run how we would do it. So I'm hoping I'm explaining that right. And guys, I want everybody's car to run good. I'm not one of them people that want our stuff to be better. I just want our stuff to run as good as we can make it run. And if we do our job and know we've done the best we could do, then that's all you can do. If somebody else can do better, then that's good. It's always good when somebody makes an improvement over somebody else. If that didn't happen in life, well, there wouldn't be anybody any faster than anybody else, I'll tell you that. But anyway, fellas, I just came in from outside, trying to relax a little bit. But I wanted to run this video by you because I had a guy ask me last night what size valves to put in. I went off the top of my head. I tried to think about right away the biggest thing he could fit in there as an upgrade, not knowing what he's doing. So that's what this video is about, fellas. But guys, like I always tell you, if there's something I could do to help you, just drop me a comment. And like I said, I always want to do my best. And look, guys, I say this over and over. You don't just listen to me. You listen to other people. You weigh it out. I've said this in my other videos. And don't be listening to one person. I don't care if he's a pro stock guy. And the reason I say it is because a pro stock guy isn't running what you're running. It's not that they don't know, because they're smart guys, but there's a whole different ball of wax. And That's what people have to realize. They'll talk about the way the head flows, and oh, I heard this guy say that he's a pro stock racer. Pro stock racers turning that motor 10,000 RPMs. Are you? It's different ball field, fellas. This is different game. So don't get caught up into that. It's always good to take whatever somebody says, weigh it out, and if it don't fit your application, just remember what they told you, the information, but don't adapt it to what you're doing if it doesn't fit, especially the RPM band that you're in. Always remember that, guys. Getting off the subject a little bit here, guys, but it's hard because I think of things and, you know, I always want to try to tell you guys something if I think it. So anyway, guys, I want to thank all you new subscribers. I surely thank all you guys that have been with me. And fellas, I have a lot coming up. The 460 stuff, it's a lot to do. We have the other car we're building with the LS. So if things fall into place, we're going to have quite a bit to talk about here in a few months, especially when it warms up. And I do want to get the number back on my car. And there's going to be a lot of things going on. Body work, which I hate, but which I want to show on a couple techniques how to do that. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, guys, while I'm here. So, but anyway, fellas, thank you for tuning in. And like I said, if there's anything I can do to help, just drop me a little thing down bottom in the quote area, or I'll be happy to answer any of your questions, guys. All right, thank you, fellas. Have a good night.